I'm just going to take a few moments to set the contextual framework in the wake of sudden changes. This session, Between Notes, Musical Portraits, was premised on two books, The Secret Master, Arun Kashalkar, A Journey to the Edge of His Music by Sumana Ramanan, and The Call of Music by Priya Purushottam. Due to forces completely outside the control of the Bangalore Literature Festival team, Priya Purushottam could not be here, and foremost apologies for that. We will have her in conversation next year. In my introduction, I will allude to both the books, and the conversation will be with Sumana. Two books, two journeys in this vast terrain called music. Through the author's words and music, we enter into a world which is really a universe of sound and music. Into a space where music is not only performed, but it is inhabited and preserved. How music shapes the musician and the artist, the learning, the riyaz, the talim, the inheritance of a gharana, the intimate art of listening, the gentle transmission of this living art form into a space where the instruction becomes an experience. And what these book journeys also reveal to us is that we enter into the emotional, the philosophical terrain of a space where not only is music and the artist made, but it is not only in performance, it is in those snug anchorages between the notes where true musical portraits emerge. Please join me in giving a loud cheer to both authors, Priya Purushottam and Sumana Ramanan, for their scholarly work. In conversation with Sumana. So foremost, Sumana, congratulations for this treatise, for writing such a scholarly, I beg your pardon, book. If we can strike the opening score with the genesis of the book. Pandit Arun Kashalkar as a musician was not in mainstream. It's actually his younger brother, Pandit Ullas Kashalkar, who's more well known. You really illuminate the landscape, but it's a landscape that you went and sought him. What drew you to his music? And is it in the search that you came up with this very intriguing title, The Secret Master?
Thank you very much, Sadhana. And before I start, I just want to say that I'm very disappointed that Priya isn't here, because her book is outstanding and it's beautifully written, and I learned a lot from it. So I would encourage everyone here to also look up her book and read it. So yes, basically, I heard Pandit Arun Kashalkar very late in my life. I've been a lifelong concert goer, and I heard him by accident when, very late in my life, in the fifth decade of my life, and in the seventh decade of his life. And what I liked about the music, the music actually slowly grew on me as he sang, and after about half an hour, it was absolutely transporting. His voice, I could tell, was not in the absolute best shape, but despite that, I was completely blown away by the end of the concert. After a very long time, I had heard music that sounded like those of the old masters. It had a sound that seemed to come from a different era, and it was very developed, like old wine. It was the flavors were very developed, and I just in the book I've written that his music spoke to me from a distant past like a lost treasure, but appearing alone and vulnerable, it also made me sad, because I had not heard him, and I wondered what was this dissonance between the greatness of this music and his relative anonymity. The other thing about his music was that I found the architecture to be really grand. See, in Khayal music, you learn from the guru, but there is a great premium put on developing your own style. So unlike in Carnatic music and perhaps in Drupad, which are the two other strictly rag-based genres of Indian classical music, of Indian music rather, in Khayal there is the culture of Khayal puts a great premium on individual singers not sounding like their gurus to create a new style. And I found the whole architecture to be really grand. For instance, he began many of his renditions with something called the Nom Tom Alap, which actually was originally part of Drupad. But what happened is that as Khayal came later and became very popular, many people, many good singers who were from Drupad families started singing Khayal. The one lot of singers from one stream of the Drupad genre called the Nauhar Bani of Drupad became Khayal singers, and they became what's called the Agra Gharana, which is a stylistic tradition, and they brought over the Nom Tom and adapted it to Khayal. And my guru sang that because he had training in the Agra Gharana. So that was one. And he also, I could see, was also singing in two other styles. So there are 6 major widespread Khayal styles today. 3 are traditional ones and 3 are more recent. So he was singing in all 3 of the traditional styles. Not only Agra, but Gwalior, which is the original Khayal style, and Jaipur. And so that was also the scale of, I had not seen someone with such a ferocious command of all 3 styles. That was the second thing. And then also it was very clear to me that he was a master of rhythm. And you know, I hope we can play the clip later, that it was very intricate. And I grew up in a family where there was lots of Carnatic music. My father used to sing every day. So, and in Carnatic music's rhythm is very intricate, as many of you may know. And there's sort of a division of labor. You know, Khayal is much more melodic. That was the kind of traditional view. But I felt he had elevated rhythm in Khayal to the level of Carnatic music. For the first time, I was hearing someone who had such a great command over rhythm. So these are all the things. And also, he was a composer. And she asked me, why is he a secret master? Because I had not heard him before. And this was the scale of the music. And so the mystery was, why hadn't I heard him for so many years if he's in Bombay and I was in Bombay. And Bombay actually, if many people may not know, is probably the hub for Khayal today. And why hadn't I heard him? He's such a composer, look at this style, and he had come with a whole coterie of students. And another thing that also was a mystery was that he was extremely jovial and laughing and joking with the students behind him. And I was like, you know, if someone had been marginalized like this, I didn't expect him to be so cheerful and with such a positive personality. He was laughing, joking. And, you know, because I have met artists who haven't got their due and are bitter. And there wasn't a trace of bitterness in him. So that was also the other big mystery.
Thanks for that. So, you know, I understand that the stature of the musician then somewhere translates into the writing. And music is a very difficult form to write about, you know. So in your genre, you take a very unique literary tradition of writing, which is literary non-fiction, where you use tools, but you're very, very conscious of the facts. Explore that thought.
Yeah. So, so Sadhana said that it's a work of scholarship, but actually I have written it for the lay person. And there is scholarship in it, and I'm really flattered that she said it had scholarship. But it really, I've written it like a human drama. Because, I have long been inspired by the tradition of literary non-fiction, which began in the 1960s in the US in journalism, which was the whole time of rebellion, and a lot of writers were also trying to rebel against the traditional format of journalism, which is just to tell a story. not to show a story. So they were borrowing heavily from techniques in fiction by creating plot, by developing characters, reporting dialogue very accurately, and interviewing the characters so deeply that you can also write their interior monologues. So I've long been a fan of that. I've read Gay Tully's, and then Norman Mailer, The Armies of the Night, which was a very seminal book about the protests in Washington DC in the 1960s. So there are these seminal books of literary non-fiction which I've read and I've been inspired by. And in India also, there's been an excellent flowering of this tradition. So I was pretty sure that that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, of course, it's but I just want to make one exception, which is that I didn't want to make a fetish of showing and not telling. Because when you are trying to report the facts, sometimes you may not have, you cannot, because you have to be faithful to the facts, you cannot create a scene. So I was trying to create scenes for which you have to, interview lots of people and try to get them to recollect things, especially things where I was not an eyewitness. So, but I didn't want to be fundamentalist about showing and not telling. Partly because in some cases I could not get the facts that I needed. And the second thing is, a lot of non-fiction genres or approaches are also very powerful, and I didn't want to forego those tools. Like for instance, I have a lot of explanatory writing. I also have argumentative writing where, one chapter I make an argument. And because I wanted to weave in the history of this art form, I've also done historical narrative. And some bits are also explorative, like in the essay form. So I have used other standard techniques of non-fiction every once in a while where I think it was appropriate. But I have also harnessed literary non-fiction in a significant way. I've tried.
So it is human drama. I do urge you all to read the book. So the human drama, so right through the book, the human drama sort of pans out in three narratives. There is a story of Pandit Arun Kashalkarji with his music. There is a story of you as a student and learning music. And the third narrative is about the history and the story of music itself. And each chapter sort of has each of these multiple narratives that are running. How did this design come into? Was it a conscious decision?
Actually, it evolved over time because I wanted to write about. So I listened to my guru, Pandit Arun Kashalkar, and then I decided I was learning music from another guru of the Jaipur Gharana, and then I decided I would learn from him because I wanted the exposure to the three gharanas that he was a master of, and I love rhythm because I used to be a Bharatanatyam dancer a long time ago, and I love rhythm, and so I wanted to learn it. And the thing is that because to write about his life, I also needed to understand the music. So partly I wanted to learn because I love the music, but also because I felt I could not write about his music without actually learning and being embedded in his community. And he had a very large student community. That was also very a point of great, excitement for me. So I knew that as I was interviewing him, that the parts about the time till the time I met him was all history. So I had to use historical techniques, oral history, and also primary sources. So those techniques were very different. And then I also wanted to capture my journey in this very exciting student community, that in the 21st century, informally he had taught about hundreds of people, 300, 400 people, but at the time I joined, we were about 50 or 60 of us, and he was teaching all of us from his small home in the northern suburbs of Mumbai, along with the help of his wife, of course, without which nothing of this could have happened. And the thing is that I was like, I have to capture this community, the rituals, and the music was of such a high level, and it was so much richer than what I had seen in the mainstream that I said, but then I became a participant and I was an eyewitness. So I could not use the same techniques. So there the techniques were more anthropological and ethnographic, because I was a participant observer. And then I also realized that I wanted to reach the lay listener. And as I was learning from him, I was also understanding the music in a much deeper way. And I had lots of friends who are lay listeners, and I felt I wanted to reach them, and the music also became a character for me. So then I decided that in every chapter, my journey would be the first part, then it would be his journey, and then I would write about the music. But the musical parts are usually aesthetic, and the history is woven into all three sections.
So that's how it sort of each chapter you know.
And three sections.
So one of the things that really strikes and stands out is while you give a lot of grammar and vocabulary to the learning, to the talim, what's I think very important, and particularly in contemporary music education and music teaching that is missing, is that very intimate art of listening. In almost all the sessions that you say, before you can even, it's the old Drupadiya style where you say, "Sa pe raho, betho sa pe 6 mahine ke liye." So you have graphically described that intimate art of listening. Should we attempt to just create a little bit of his music, if I can just play the track? Yeah?
Can I? Okay, I'll just give a little bit of introduction before we play the track.
Okay, explain.
Yeah, I'd like to just explain because it's a very short, it's a 2-minute clip. So I said that he was a master of rhythm. So while I was talking to many people, what they said is, so there's a part of his music when it starts which is very soulful. But he has taken the rhythm to such an extent that it really plays with the rhythm and tests the rhythm. He pushes rhythm to its limits. So one of his friends said, "Ye to dadagiri ka gana hai." It's audacious music. He's always trying to take risks. So you'll see that it starts very soulfully, but it can border on the aggressive as it goes on. Ferocious music, and it's I've selected the clip after he's hit the tar shaj, which is the upper sa, which is one of the great aesthetic points of Hindustani music, of Khayal music, and after that he starts some laikari. So it's just 2 minutes. So it's Mia Malhar, and the composition is a very famous traditional composition. I think it's by Sadhana Rao, who's a great composer. Kareem naam tero, tu sahib satar. So, yeah. It's not a very great composition. The other thing is, he used to sing in baithaks and in his home. And I always wondered when I got out these archival recordings, which I put on his channel under the Secret Master playlist, which I'll keep adding to. There are 12 now, but I'll keep adding to them. This is not there, the whole thing. I used to wonder, how is he able to summon up such intensity when he has only an audience of 25? But for him later he said, no, these are the people who know the music. So, I hope you can send some of it. It's not a great recording because these are all in the days of cassettes.
So, and we also apologize if our sound doesn't work as much, but we do hope enjoy the listening. Start.
just wanted to say something. So about rhythm, you know, and over time I spoke to lots of other people about his music, and I realized that he was not a secret among a small group of aficionados and musicians. So I managed to interview Kishori Amonkar before she passed away, and I learned that she was a great admirer of my guru. And this is what she told a common friend of mine who had learned from her mother and was a very close family friend. I couldn't interview her because by the time I got to her, she was already, I think, not very well. And she passed away in 2017, and I started this book in around that time. So she said in Marathi, हिंदुस्थानी शास्त्रीय संगीतामध्ये तालाच्या वजन तुला हवे तर go to Pandit Arun Kashalkar. If you want to understand the role of rhythm in Hindustani classical music, then go to Pandit Arun. He brings the aesthetics of tal into consciousness as no other vocalist does. And then she also went to say, but I love his music in its entirety. काय full आवाज आहे, किती accurately सूर लावलात की बोलू नको. What a full voice. His sur is so accurate that I have no words for it. Then I also met someone who used to play the harmonium for Bhimsen Joshi, because my guru initially was a big fan of Bhimsen Joshi. He was called Prati Bhimsen, a copy of Bhimsen, who was from the Kirana Gharana. Then he found other gurus and moved to the other three Gharanas. But so this harmonium player told me what Bhimsen ji told him about my guru, which is, so the harmonium player says, I asked Bhimsen ji which artists in the next generation one should listen to. Bhimsen ji went quiet for some time and then said, the Kashalkar brothers, the elder one. Then he handed the young harmonium player a cassette and said, someone recently gave me this. It is Arun Kaka's Shri. Shri is a rag. It is massive in conception and flawless in execution.
So, great. So, you know, we've heard the track and we've heard what his peers have said. Explore the thought, you know, when you say, when a musician takes all his life to live in one gharana. Here you have a musician away from the mainstream, a master in three gharanas. You know, Gwalior is all about architecture, the grandness of it. You have the Agra, which has gravitas, and the Jaipur gharana, which has the, you know, a strong rhythm focus. How was this in that your intimate circle of listening with all the students that are coming, the pedagogy that has moved? How did the three gharanas, did they form a signature that was classically Arun Kashalkar ji, which formed a specific pedagogy? Or did he balance out the three gharanas? The question I'm trying to ask here is, what is the golden mean between all the three gharanas? How did he do justice to each one of them?
That's a very interesting question. See, one must first realize that these three gharanas of the six which are the most widespread are the traditional ones and do share some aesthetic features which are very different from the others. The other three are Rampur, Sahaswan, Kirana and Patiala. And of course, this is not all black and white. I'm just giving you the ideal, the ideal models. So these three do share, they are very rhythmic. They have a very large repertoire of ragas. And they were the traditional gharanas practiced by the elite vocalists. And these were like, mostly these other gharanas grew out of accompanists who were rebelling against this elitism and created their own style. So here so there's a lot of focus on rhythm, and their melodic exposition a lot of it is phrase based, not note based. So it's more abstract. So they don't start necessarily from the bottom and go up, because also it's composition directed, avartan linked and phrase based. Bandish based, avartan linked and phrasal. Whereas these other gharanas are usually note based, and they are not as strongly linked to rhythm because they use a very vilambit lay, so you actually can't see the end of the avartan. It's like when you're running a 100-meter sprint or a 400-meter sprint, you can actually see the end. But if you're running a 3-kilometer thing, you can't really see the end. So in some sense, lay in that sense is not central in the consciousness. They use lay very differently. And also because they were non-elite, they actually did not get talim in many of the compositions. So they actually have a smaller repertoire of composition. They focused on melodic beauty, and they explored the lower octaves, which these musicians didn't do that much. So you will see in Bhimsen Joshi's music, and also in Taiyari, which is, but so good. So it's not as though these three gharanas that he was practicing were all so disparate. They had an ideological unity, and basically the reason they are linked is because Gwalior was the original gharana, which was formed by Sufi musicians who initially were in Delhi, and then they moved to the Gwalior court after the collapse of the Mughal Empire. They had to find employment elsewhere. So some of the most talented ones made their way to the Gwalior court, and that's where the Sufi musicians were the first who came and created the Gwalior style, and all other styles either hewed to the Gwalior style or belong to this heterodox rebellious style. So the Agra and Jaipur musicians all learned from the Gwalior. Agra and Jaipur, the forebears, learned heavily from the Gwalior musicians. But because they were Drupad singers, they brought their own sensibility. Like I said, the Agra musicians brought their Nomto Mala from Drupad. And whereas the Gwalior musicians were not Drupad singers, they were Sufi Qawwals who took to Khayal and then spread that to other people. And then, so the Agra musicians were Drupad, and Jaipur Gharana was also from Drupad vocalists, but it has a different style. It has a lot of offbeat. It's characterized by offbeat designs and rare ragas, because the founder Aladia Khan, he sang so much, like his patron in Rajasthan made him sing so much that he lost his voice, and so in order to make up for the lack of vocalism, he created this really intriguing designs. So the Jaipur Gharana is known for his very intriguing designs and compound and rare rags. He made rags and compound rags, and you can tell. I mean, if you're somewhat of a regular listener, you can kind of tell. So what my Guruji does is, so there are some rags which are specific to each of these that they have specialized in. So if it's a Gwalior rag like Hamir or Malgunji or Bhairav Bahar, he will sing it primarily in the Gwalior style, but then he will bring in Agra, because after a point he'll start doing this rhythmic play. After doing the slow alap, he'll do the rhythmic play, and then he will, in the Tan section, he'll start doing the Jaipur offbeat designs. Then if it's a typical Agra rag, let's say the Barwa or Pancham or Lachari Todi, he will begin with the grand Nom Tom, and then he will have some of the Gwalior designs which are swings across the octave. He'll do that. So he mixes it. So that's what there's a part in the book when he says you know, mixing gharanas is like mixing cocktails, you know. But he says, where are the listeners who can taste these cocktails? You know, by virtue of having learnt in all these gharanas for decades, I will be my first cocktail taster and approver.
On that note, on the listening note, I mean, you did allude to the fact that Mumbai was this, a lot of people don't know that Mumbai was the center for, which is now current center for Hindustani music. What is also surprising is that Mumbai has a huge fringe movement, a real counterculture of Hindustani music, which is away from mainstream stage. Would you say that artists like Pandit Arun Kashalkarji, they belong to that and they really thrive in that counterculture? Mainstream has sort of
that's a very good question, but I wouldn't. I mean, he has ended up thriving. I mean, his music has ended up thriving, but but it has been extremely difficult, because the mainstream has, after the 1990s, when we had all these economic reforms, what has happened is that this music has become very rampantly commercialized, and it's become a business, and it's very difficult today to make it, and there is no system of spotting talent. So the people who are being showcased are either people who managed to get in before this commercialization happened, but the younger ones are usually sons, daughters and progeny and relatives and grandchildren also now, of already people who are well known, and some of them may be decent, I'm not saying no. But the fact is that the businesses are just milking their names, that's one. And the second thing is that if you do light music, like Natya Sangeet, if you do film music, you do that, and I'm not disparaging those genres at all, okay? And I don't want to make a hierarchy of genres. But if you're a singer of khayal, that's what you should be specializing in, and you should be judged on that ground. And this kind of muddying the waters does not happen in Carnatic music. If you go to a Carnatic music concert, you're going to get only Carnatic music. But now all these impresarios will present Hindustani music, and in the name of Hindustani music, you'll have all sorts of jugalbandis, you'll have Natya Sangeet, and you'll have one or two people singing maybe one rag. And I've even mentioned one big impresario. On Facebook, she was talking about a concert in which the singer sang 2 rags in a row, and she said, oh, I was thinking, why did she sing the second rag? She could have sung a bhajan or a, I mean, this kind of thing will never happen in Carnatic music, it will never happen in Western classical music. So the point is, the thing is, so it's deeply commercialized, but and unfortunately, there are many non-profit groups which are also following this model, which is the real disappointment. At some level, you may not be able to blame, I mean, they're not blame, I do blame them, they are businesses. I mean, you can't expect anything different of businesses, but as a society, I think we should wonder whether we should leave all spheres of activity to the market, and the other thing is, so the non-profits like the National Center for Performing Arts in Bombay is a very prominent non-profit, flush with money, and it got acres of land because it was meant to preserve Indian classical music. But at some point, it got a chairman who was only interested in Western classical music. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. We should be open to the world. We should be open to all sorts of genres. But it is unbelievable the imbalance in their spending. They are spending crores on Western classical music, and they will pay 40,000 rupees for a top Hindustani classical musician. They hadn't even heard of my guru when I approached them, because I was writing an article initially, and I said, I want to quote you on this. They had not even heard of him, which means they don't know what's happening in Bombay. And then then she was very embarrassed, the head of the Indian classical music division, and said, oh, okay, we'll present him. And then they presented him, and she said, and they presented him in some small theatre on their huge campus. And then she very apologetically, she said, if we never get a crowd here, but if crowds come, we'll definitely present him after that, in a better place. It was absolutely jam-packed. They had to seat people in the wings, and he had to, people were stuck outside without tickets and everything. But he never heard from her. And there are lots of other fringe musicians. Let me not just say he's the only one. He's perhaps the most accomplished, but there are many excellent fringe musicians who can't get in because they're busy doing their music. Because in order and their students also suffer, because they have absorbed the values of their their gurus, and so they also cannot get themselves, to get themselves to sing all these other genres. And though they can, many of them are excellent, but they feel we've spent so much time. This is the heritage that we need. So I think listeners should become more discerning. I think that's the only solution. Good job. And also in Hindustani music, I feel concert reviews have completely, the quality of concert reviews have completely declined. And the digital platforms have some good writing, but concert reviews have declined. Again, in Carnatic music, one can say that the quality has declined, but it's still there, and there is no taboo against criticizing pretty severely artists who are in the public eye and who are considered influential. But in Hindustani music, that's absolutely not the case. There's not regular series of critical, critical by critical, I mean, I don't mean you have to criticize all the time, but dispassionate concert reviews.
So he's an unparalleled master in the sense that he took the road less traveled when the roads were so full of potholes and it was difficult to navigate.
But he has paid a price in the sense.
He certainly paid a price.
And his wife has also paid a price. So he's paid a physical price for it. But
so these stories must be told.
Yes.
I'm very conscious of the time. So should I open it to Q&A
yes.
and then just come back from closing comments? I'd like to make a comment on Priya's book too.
Yeah, sure.
So we have about 4 or 5 minutes. Should we? I think there's a question here right now.
Hello, my name is Anushka, and I had two questions.
Ask one so we can.
Okay, I'll ask one of it. You mentioned about Pandit Arun Kashalkar ji, and I wanted to know how his relationship was with even Pandit Ullas Kashalkar ji, and if he had a say, or what did he, if you were able to find out from your sources, and if you were able to interact or something. Yeah.
You're asking me what Pandit Ullas said about Pandit Arun Kashalkar.
Yeah.
So Pandit, I mean, I've quoted him here because Pandit Arun Kashalkar was was the eldest of 6 brothers from a very small town in eastern Maharashtra, which is now the farmers' suicide belt. But anyway, they learned from their father, who kind of trained all the brothers. And the eldest and the youngest were the most talented. They took home all the prizes across Maharashtra. So it was my guru who came to Bombay, found all these great gurus and brought each one of the musicians there and funded their music talim. So I think Pandit Ullas Kashalkar basically said my entire talim and my career has been based on what the talim that my eldest brother enabled. And he has great admiration for the elder brother, because the elder brother ended up learning from 3 gurus and is in these 3 gharanas. So I think he recognizes that he is a secret master.
Do we have any other questions? Any from the back maybe?
Yeah, there's one. Then you can ask yourself.
You said earlier that this book took you, I think, 7 years to write. That's a real labor of love. And as you've talked about the 3 strands, it's about your guru, it's about the wider ecosystem, and it's about you. I'm wondering whether there was something which kept you going through those 7 years, when you must have felt at times that this is way too much, or what was the impetus? Did you want to, is it a tribute to your guru? Is it more of a journalistic kind of landscaping of the music ecosystem, or was it really just you wanted to, as we've been hearing today in other sessions, did you want to understand it through writing?
I think it's all of those, all of the above. It was my first book, and like I said, I'd always admired literary non-fiction. It was always my dream to write a book, because I tried it in smaller doses, and I felt that this is the challenge, and and it was also about his music, and I was also so overwhelmed by his music and the community, and that I felt that it's new, and I'm a journalist, so you have to write about something that's new and hidden, and I also have some training in history. And I trained in this tradition called the subaltern studies, which writes about things which are not dominant. And so that's also part of my, my approach to. So both my, exposure to history writing and in journalism was all about discovering something that's new. But you're right, it wasn't easy at all, because I was also learning the music, and that was just very frustrating. Because there were professionals, and I was working on this book, and I had a part-time job, and I also to keep my head above water in that Gurukul was not easy at all. Then the second thing is also trying to explain to my guru and to the community that this is not a hagiography. It's not going to be all this. I'm not going to be only writing praise about you. It's going to be a textured thing, and that was also. And even till the end, there were some of my my fellow students kept saying, Guruji ji pustak aahe, which is, it's not his book, it's my book about a whole lot of things. And I think to get across the idea that you can write in a sort of detached way about Hindustani musicians or about our musicians itself took some, I kept explaining to them, this is because that tradition that is not there in Marathi. Non-fiction is not there in the Marathi tradition. So it took me a while to explain to them what I was doing. So.
Thank you for that talk, Sumana. You know, both these books, the session was premised on two books. Sumana explores the life of Arun Kashalkar. Priya Purushottam, in her book, Call of the Music, explores 8 musicians, written in the broader context of Hindustani music, how difficult it is to navigate, the roads ahead, the anecdotes, and the sheer constancy of purpose and the staying power. And on that note, we close the session. Thank you, Sumana. Thank you for
very
listening.
much.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much to our speakers for that lovely session.